Welcome to this tutorial brought to you by River City Graphics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a swinging text effect in After Effects. So to get started, I'm going to open up After Effects. We're going to go up to Composition, New Composition, and I'm going to create one 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second, and a background color of white. Now, basically the effect that we're going to be creating today is a swinging text effect, such as the text would have a hinge on the top, and then the text underneath that would have a hinge, and so they would basically be swinging together from the top. So before we get started, I just want to warn you, this is one of my more complex After Effects tutorials, so I will be skipping over a little bit of the beginner stuff just so that we can get this done in a timely manner. So to get started, what we need to do is create some text. So I'm going to go up to my text tool. I'm going to be creating it as Arial Black with a fill of black and no stroke. And then I'm just going to type out River. Alright, so we're going to be doing River City Graphics as the text for this tutorial. Now before you get too far, you want to make sure that you have enough room for all of your text. So I'm just going to duplicate this by hitting Control D, and then I can hold Shift and move that down. And basically we just want to make sure that we have room for River City and Graphics. Now, hopefully we will, because City will have to be a little bit taller, so maybe we can even scale this down a little bit so we can fit City in, because it's going to be a fairly chunky piece of text once we scale it up to be the same width. So once we do that, I can take and delete out these other two. Those are pretty much just guides for us. Now, you can take and make all of your text up front. I'm just going to make it later on, but you do want to kind of prepare for it so that you don't run out of room. So what I'm going to do is now take and zoom in, and we need to take and move around the anchor point. Now the reason for this is because we're going to turn this into a 3D layer by clicking on this little checkbox right here. So this is the 3D on layer basically for the layer. So I'm going to click on that. If you don't see it, you can click toggle switches and get back to it. Now if I hit R on this layer, we're going to rotate the X, and you can see that it's rotating from the bottom. Now we want to rotate it from the top. So in order to do that, we need to grab our Pan Behind tool up at the top. You can also hit Y. And I'm just going to take this point and I'm going to put it right up at the very top of my text. So just pick a letter. It doesn't really matter how far left or right this is unless you're going to be rotating along the Y, and we're not for a little bit. So I'm just going to take that, and so now if we take and test this out, you can see that we have a nice swinging text. Perfect. So now basically you kind of see where this tutorial is going. What we're going to be doing is starting to animate this. So I'm just going to get this to where we can see it a little better. And we're going to take and just create a keyframe on the first frame there. I'm going to zoom in here so that we can see a little bit better. This is 1 second here, so we'll come out probably about here, and then we'll create another keyframe. Now on the first frame, what we need to do is make sure that we can't see our text. So we want it to come down from basically nothing up here. Alright, so that should be pretty good right there. You want to make sure that you have just barely the line, so it's completely, we're looking at the bottom of the text. So we're going to come out a little bit. Then we're going to take and make another keyframe. And we're going to take and put this one in the positive. So you can see it's swinging down. Alright, it's going past the bottom part, and then it's going up. Now you want to make sure that this one comes up pretty far, so I'm going to put it about 65. And then we're going to come down again, and what we want to do is again move out your playhead so that you're about the same distance. And then we're going to be moving it again in the opposite direction, and this time it's going to be coming up less than it did the first time. Alright, so we're going to put it around probably -45. Now you'll see that we're doing something right here. What you want to make sure you do in this technique or in this animation is make sure that you cross that 90-degree point. So if we just stopped right there, this would not look natural because it's not just going to stop. You want to make sure that it swings past that point and then comes back. Alright, so I already have these other values written down, so I'm just going to come out the same amount of space, and then I'm going to be typing in 25. Okay, we're going to move out about the same amount of space. I'm going to type in -20. Again, about the same amount of space. And then we're going to put in 10. And then we're going to take and put in 0. Now, these aren't perfect values probably for everyone, depending on the size of your text, where your text is on the screen, just all kinds of different factors. It might actually change those values. Now, those are good starting points, so you can take and tweak those. Again, these aren't completely perfect, so we'll just take and preview this. You can see it kind of a little quick there as it was RAM previewing. Okay, so you can see that we kind of have a little bit of a problem, and that problem is that it takes and comes and stops at a point and then instantly starts to go to the next point, rather than taking kind of having a slow down and start up that you would actually see in actual movement if this was actually rotating around that hinge point. So the way that we're going to do this is by using Easy Ease keyframes. So I'm going to select all of them except the first one, and we'll right click, and it's off screen, but I'm going to Keyframe Assistant and then Easy Ease. Alright, you can also hit F9 in order to add that. So now if we take and play it, and then we get past the fast part there, you can see that it kind of comes down and swings. Now we can take and slow this down. If I select all these, hold Alt, and select the last one and kind of drag it out, that's called roving, and it basically scales all of them equally. So now you can see that we have a nice swing to it. That actually looks pretty good, so we won't have to do too much tweaking. So now what we want to do is basically add in the next word, which is going to be city. Alright, so we want to come to the end. Always come to the end when you're adding in new text, because you want to make sure that this is how it's going to be at the end, and you're adding in text how it's going to look at the end. So I'm going to make the word city. Alright, and we're going to take and put that there, scale it up, and we'll have to reposition it. That's okay. Alright, so now we have our word city. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is turn that into a 3D layer. So I'm going to click the 3D box on it. Now the next thing that we're going to do is take and move the orientation point. So we're going to grab that pan behind tool and make sure it's very, very picky. You have to click right on it, otherwise it takes and disappears, which is kind of frustrating. And we're going to put that right on the black part of our text. Alright, so now that we've done that, the next step in actually creating this is to copy our keyframes. Now we're going to copy all except the first one. Alright, so don't copy the first one. Just grab the ones that look like little hourglasses. So I'm going to copy those. Then we're going to take and come up here, and we're going to paste those. So we need to hit R. Again, make sure it's 3D so that you see these options. Click the stopwatch for our X rotation, and then I'm just going to take and paste those frames. Alright, now the next step is to take and parent this layer to the other one. Alright, so we're parenting the city layer to the river layer. So we're going to take in the parent for city, go down to river. Alright, so now you can kind of see what's going to happen here. Now it does have a little bit of an issue. It kind of finishes its other animation before it starts the next one. Now that's not a problem. We can move these keyframes around. So what we're going to do is watch our river. Just kind of ignore the city for now. Watch the river, and when the river starts to come forward, that's when we want the city to start. Okay? And so we're going to take, and at that point, we're going to move our keyframes up to our playhead line. Okay? And then we can take and cut our clip so that it doesn't exist before that point. Alright, so right when it starts to move forward, we bring that in, and now you should probably have a little bit of a smile on your face, because that's pretty sweet. Now it's taking and swinging both of those pieces of text at the same time, as if they were linked together. That's pretty cool. Alright, so now the next thing that we need to do is, again, make sure you move to the very end, just off of your keyframes, so that you're looking at your static flat text, no rotations. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take our text tool, and we're going to type out graphics. Okay? And we can zoom in here so we make sure we get this fairly lined up. Again, this isn't going to be a perfect masterpiece because it is just a tutorial. But for yours, you'll probably take a little bit more time to get it perfectly lined up. So I'm going to get this so that it's about the same width as these other pieces, and hopefully about the same distance in spacing between the lines. Alright, so now once I've done that, we're going to follow these steps again. Now, if you are having trouble, it's likely that you did not do these steps in the right order. I have had some issues with this where I can't get the rotation even though everything's parented right and everything, and the only thing I can attribute that to is not doing these steps in the right order. So, once you've made your text, you're going to want to turn on your 3D layer. So we're making it 3D by clicking that box. Then we're going to take and move our orientation point. Okay, so we're grabbing our pan behind tool, you can zoom in, put this wherever you want, as long as it is at the very top of your text, and then we can take and zoom out. Now, what we need to do is copy these keyframes. You can copy them from city, or you can copy them from river, but always make sure that if you're copying them for the first one, you don't get the first keyframe, you want only the last one. So I'm just going to copy them from the city layer. So copy those. We're going to hit R on this layer. make a keyframe on X rotation, paste these keyframes. All right, looks good so far. If you see it like this, it's probably a good sign it's not going to screw up on you. And then the last step that you want to do is you want to take and parent that to your city, which is my second piece. All right, so now we should see that it's kind of working. Again, we're a little late there. We want to make sure that we time this up. So now, ignore river and ignore graphics, and we're looking right at city. City comes in, and we want it to be probably right there. That's probably when we'll bring it in. So we'll take and drag these keyframes all the way up to our playhead. And so now it comes in, and that is pretty cool. All right. So you got it coming in. And you see the problem there? The graphics is in there the whole time, so it looks like it's rotating around a circle there. Again, we need to make sure that we cut this down. Make sure you're not on your pan behind tool, just on your regular selection. And then we'll take and cut that down to wherever that first keyframe is, so then it doesn't exist. And you could technically fade those in, like right there, maybe fade that in opacity so it doesn't just jump on. But for right now, that's probably okay. You guys can handle a simple opacity fade. And it's going to swing in. Now you can hit play, and it's probably going to be a little quick. Now you might want to take and adjust that later on so that it's not quite as fast. Maybe take and change a little bit of the rotations, or maybe the timing. Instead of having it on that very first part where it comes down, maybe you'll wait until it goes back and then it comes in a second time. That way the movement isn't so violent because it's coming in on the second part of that, basically the rotation animation. So basically that's what you can do. Now I am going to show you a couple of other things that are pretty sweet. One of which is I kind of came across this actually on accident. I was just kind of screwing around with my pieces after I was done. So I came after all of the keyframes. So then I just selected all of the layers. And then what I did was I took and just was messing around, and I just rotated the Y, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. So just undo that. Now what this is basically doing is it's taking, and you remember how I told you that those X basically are the these positions right here, these pan behind the anchor points, weren't important which way left or right they are. Now they're going to become a little bit more important because we're going to strategically place them in order to get a pretty cool effect. So I'm going to take and move this one pretty close to the center. So I'm just holding shift and I'm moving it left and right, so we make sure that we don't move it off of our top part in order anywhere, basically up or down, so that we don't mess up what we've already done. So I'm going to get it near the middle. Doesn't need to be perfect. Click on city, and I can just take this one and I can just move this one out more to the left, and then I'm going to take and click on graphics and grab that point, and I'm just going to put it all the way to the right. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is select all of these layers again. So I'm just holding shift and clicking on them. And then after we're done with our first animation, we'll make sure that we're clear of this last keyframe on our last layer. We're going to take and come down here and just make a Y keyframe. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch. Now we can come out to, I don't know, just to come out a few seconds or so. This is about, I don't know, a second and a half. And then I'm going to take and just turn up the Y rotation. Okay, and so you want to make sure that it does a complete circle, and because all of these are parented to river, you basically have to wait until all of those are back. So it's going to come, and once you're at one rotation, you can technically take and type in 1 in this first spot right here, but it's cooler to kind of take and watch it as you're making it. And then what you can do is you have a nice sweet animation where it all wraps around like that, and it kind of has different axis points. Now you can take and change this up. It's not perfect for everything, but I thought it was pretty cool when I was just playing around with it. So I thought I'd pass it along to you. Now the last thing that we're going to do, this is kind of even getting way more extended than the regular tutorial. This was kind of the tutorial, was this swinging text. But what we're going to do is take and add in the word tutorials, just because we can. So I'm going to take and just have it drop down from behind the graphics text. Now I'm sure that you've seen this before. Basically it looks like the text just appears dropping down out of nowhere, even though there's clearly text here and you can clearly see through it. And the way we're going to do that is with a masking technique. So I'm just going to take and type out the word tutorials. Okay, and we're going to take and just make sure and select the box, and then we can scale that down. Okay. once we get it like that, we can bring it down. I don't know, that's probably good. It's not the best graphic design ever, but it fits up and it should work for our purpose. So what we're going to do now is take and animate the position. So I'm going to be after all of my other animations. So it just got done doing its fancy spin, and right about here, which is a few keyframes after that, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, just a little bit after your frames there. And I'm just going to make sure the tutorials layer is selected, hit P, make a keyframe by clicking the stopwatch, and I'm going to, actually, yeah, we'll go up. So it needs to be on top of the graphics. And then I'm just going to come forward a little bit, and then we're just going to make sure that we move that down, okay? So we just move it back to where it was. So now we basically have this, and then it comes down. Perfect. Probably a little too long, but we can adjust the timing later. So now it comes down. So now the problem is we need to actually mask that out, because we can kind of see that it's coming in there. It's kind of a little bit of a problem. Alright, so we can take and actually cut this, and what we need to do is mask this, and the way that we're going to do that is grabbing our pen tool up here, and so we're going to then take and mask out this whole area right here. Now you want to try and get this as close to the bottom of the G as possible, or the bottom of the word graphics. Okay, so you can take and move these around if you need to. Just make sure and click directly on the point, and then unclick, and then drag it. Otherwise it's going to bring up a bounding box, which is highly annoying, but sometimes helpful. If you double click, you can move the entire thing around at once, which we're actually going to do in order for this effect. So I'm going to take, and now you can see it's not really doing anything, because what we need to do is, if it's closed up, you can hit M on your layer and it'll bring up masks. And so now we're going to take, and on that mask 1, we're going to take and change it to subtract. So it was on add, we're going to be putting it on subtract. You can see it disappears. So now the mask moves with the object, which is one of the most annoying things. But the way that we're going to handle that is by actually animating the mask and kind of rotoscoping it to the word graphics. So I'm going to close mask and then open it up, and it'll open all of its properties. And we're going to be animating the mask path. So I'm going to click the stopwatch for mask path, and then we're going to go forward a little bit, and you can see that we just need to take and make sure that it stays on there. So I'm just going to click on it and hold shift and move it up. So it's on the very bottom there. You can start to see what's happening here as we go forward. Just make sure mask path is moving up there, and wha-bam, we got it. Now tutorials is coming out right there. So now I'm just going to hold shift and hit P so we bring up the position as well. So now once this gets to its point, what I kind of want it to do is we can copy this keyframe, paste it there, and what I want it to do right here is kind of come down a little bit more. So we're going to move this down a little bit more, and then it's going to come back up. So again, kind of like what we did before, you don't want it to just stop at one point. You kind of want it to have a follow through, so it comes down a little bit more and then it comes back up. It'll kind of give it a little bit more of a bounce. So what we can do is actually take this keyframe and easy ease it, just like we did before. Right click keyframe assistant and easy ease, or hit F9. And so now it kind of has a little bit of a bounce to it. Now I don't know how fast this is going to be in real time, but you can see it's quite slow. Make sure that you select your mask path and position keyframes if you're going to tweak this. Hold Alt, select the last keyframe, so don't select this one. This one's the furthest out. And we're going to start moving that in, which is called roving again. And so now you can see it moves a little bit quicker. So that comes up a little quick. And what we're going to do is just take and move that last one out. And so now looks pretty good. You can take and tweak this again as you would like. So I'm just going to take and fit that to the screen, and we'll go to the beginning and play this. And there you go. You have a nice little, I guess, title graphic or whatever you'd like. You've pretty much learned 3 different things here. You've learned this, which is the rotation, the Y rotation on different axes, and then the masking technique for dropping down text. So these are a lot of common things. Maybe not this middle one. This one's kind of just something I came across. But this fly down, also the drop down, are definitely popular typography and kinetic type techniques. So now you guys know how to use them, and have fun using them in your work. I hope you guys learned something in this tutorial. There was definitely a lot to cover. We did a whole lot of masking. We did some parenting. We did some moving of the anchor point and rotating and 3D and all kinds of stuff. So this one was pretty jam-packed with some helpful stuff. So I hope you guys had a good time learning how to do this. So make sure and subscribe. We do have a new video coming out every week. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.